Okay, we're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of Vanessa's story. We were just chatting here that she's about to get the sunset in her face.
I'm traveling and the place I'm in is very different, so I have no idea what's going to happen with the lighting.
Well, Vanessa and I were just chatting about forgiveness and how I'm just dying to do an entire hour on forgiveness and what
we could probably do like a live stream for like 17 hours on forgiveness. You know,
we could because as I was saying, like, is it that some people are just forgiving and they're just like, it's okay, and other people like me, I'm like, no, I don't owe them anything, I'm not going to forgive them, I don't care, I won't think of them again. And what does that mean for me or for them or for society or anyway? So that's what we were just chatting about. And then also we were talking about you went live with your dad on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling some stories. And so it's interesting because I was conflicted because I wanted to turn it off when it got to the part where you went to live with him in England, because I was like, that's where we are. I don't want to hear this yet. I want to hear it live.
Yeah.
But and I was also somewhat preoccupied as I was listening to you. I was getting ready for that event. And so I was like, no, that's okay. There's going to be plenty for you to talk about. But how did that live with your dad make you feel on Saturday? Like, what did it affect any of your feelings or opinions that you already had?
It helped me understand that I'm very similar to my dad in that neither one of us really hold grudges. It is a personality trait or genetic or whatever. We're both very, once I understand something and if I can fully accept it, then I can let it go. And my dad is very much the same way. He's had really awful things happen to him. And not in the same way for me, but he's had some, we're humans, we're going to have a lot of crap that happens to us. But I think one of the big takeaways that's relevant to what we're doing is how incredibly different my 22-year-old rock star dad's experience was versus mine, where he was exploring his faith, his spirituality, his marriage, what it meant to be a young dad, what it meant to give up a career in rock, in music, what it meant to be this young spiritual seeker that at a time when he said spirituality was in the air, seeking was just in the air of the time. And so, and he had fun. He wanted to become a Brahmin. To him, he was at full choice with everything that happened. And he was at the beginning of the movement. So it was new and light. And again, it's very contextual to 1960s and 1970s, because that time was nothing you and I can understand. I mean, it was a completely unique time in space, time, and history, right? And so, yeah, that was the biggest takeaway, was his experience being at choice and this being fun, and me being the product of, I had a fully intact family. I had a house, I had grandparents, I had someone, I used to sleep with my mom, and I was, I was a little girl and I would sleep with my right leg over her hip, and we were bonded. And the rest of my childhood from 4.5 on was all about separation and division and nothing at choice. I was not at choice in anything in my life. Taken from them, slept in weird places. Nothing was the same. I had no clothes of my own. There was this just absolute, what's the word? Almost opposite of what I had been raised with. And thank God I had that foundation, because people always say, like, how are you? I'm like, well, I think because I had a really rock solid foundation until I was 4.5.
So it's fascinating to me. And I wonder, I'm sure some therapist would know the answer to this, but there are certain developmental things that happen with children where it's necessary for them to, well, you called it bonded, but it's necessary for them to build that attachment for future relationships and
Yeah.
whatnot in their life. And I'm wondering how it affected you and me in different ways where you were able to build those bonds and I was not. So did
Mhm.
it affect you more, or how differently did it affect you to be torn away from what you knew, that love and comfort and bond that you shared, versus me, where I never got to develop it? And then was that easier for me, or was it was it harder for you to adjust? So I would imagine
Yeah.
harder for you to adjust because you had a parent that you were attached to, or two,
I
in
had
fact.
two. Well, and I think it's really different. You and I are very different personalities, right? You can just tell that we both handle things differently. We think about things really differently. So I think that this is where I always go to. It's really complex. If we are here, do you believe in like reincarnation and all that stuff?
I don't know.
Okay. So
It's
what I want to say about that is just, if we come here, if we choose our path before we come here, right? We have that layer of our existence, our experience. We came here for a certain thing. Then you have the genetics of your personality, whatever the hell that is. Then you have the situational experiences. And so I think it's so impossible to actually compare or even sometimes understand why people are okay or not okay with whatever they experienced, because I think it's great to talk about and explore, but I think ultimately there's a point of it where it's just acceptance. Like, it's just how she is, it's just how I am. I
right.
could give you a laundry list of all the things, but at the end of the day, it just, for me, that's how my brain works, is like, I pick apart everything. I'm a Libra. I'm an air sign. And so I'm just constantly buzzing with thoughts and things. But I ultimately usually come to a really, really deep state of acceptance for something. And I'm like, well, that's just what it is. You
Yeah.
know?
And I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday about acceptance and understanding. And back in the time when I came out, there was a big um, marketing effort to tolerate the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And I was so offended by that. I was so disturbed by the fact that somebody had to tolerate me. And I was not interested in being tolerated. If you have to tolerate me, get out of my life.
Yeah.
And, acceptance is one thing. People make choices. They're going to do what they're going to do. And we're going to accept that's their choice, as long as they're not hurting a child, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And go make your choices. And I
Mm-hmm.
accept that you have the right to do that. Understanding is a different level. You can try to understand somebody's process. It is possible to understand why somebody would be the way they are by
Yeah.
dialogue, or just, actually listening and caring. You can try and understand. But for me, I I'm like, you can hopefully you've gotten from understanding to acceptance or whatever, and you can celebrate. If you can't celebrate somebody just for their existence, then, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. One of those.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that you and I also grew up with the word tolerance. So there's some of this is like language and context within that you can really nerd out on, because tolerance, we were taught to tolerate. The tolerance was a word we grew up with, right? Do you remember the context that we grew up with that? Do you remember how it was used?
We had to tolerate carmies.
Yeah, I mean, this is super nerdy, but when you really think about how we were also wired for language, service is a word I hate.
Yeah.
I'm not in service to you. I don't believe in servant leadership at all. I'm service is not a thing for me. That doesn't mean I don't do those things, but the word for me is completely intolerable.
So in my industry, you know, the people who are the most successful are the people who are service oriented, and I can't stand that word. Like,
Exactly.
you have to be willing to be of a service mind to be
Yes.
somebody's realtor and be completely committed to serving them through the process. And so I've been trying to find a different word that describes all of the things so that I can, you know, in my head be like,
Well,
no,
let me give you a different word. So there's a book I read called The Fruit, and The Fruit is a book that's based on on the fruit of the spirit. And I love the fruit of the spirit work. I read it, I love it. I think it's so powerful. But and I have my own interpretation, and I'm doing something that's a side project. But one of the things that the book they talked about that it was like really fascinating is that Jesus didn't have while he was service oriented, he wasn't a servant leader. Jesus was with the people. Servant is a hierarchical word.
yeah, it's
right?
a slave word.
And so it creates division. It's part of a caste systemic sort of vocabulary. Lower the inferior, there's an inferior, superior kind of context to it. What this amazing book was talking about was how Jesus actually practiced kinship, which is walking with people, meeting people where they are. And that's the kind of leader or coach or person that I am. I'm very much on the planet in the spirit of kinship. I will walk through hell with you. If part of walking through hell with you means doing your laundry and helping you clean something, I'm there with you.
That doesn't mean you're serving me.
I'm not serving anyone. It's not above or below. But I think that I'll share the book with everybody because I think it's one of the most, I don't know what I love about the spirit of the fruit, but this piece changed my life because I am the person that will walk through hell with anybody. I can because I think that's what I'm here for. But I'm not here to serve you. I have no problem making you dinner and doing the dishes. But it's a completely different internal relationship with another person. I'm here with you. We will hold hands through this. And that's what Jesus did. He walked the earth with people.
Empathy and care, not necessarily servitude and loyal and
exactly
slavery.
And that's what you're doing as a realtor, right? I think, anyways, is this. And I think the word service has been hijacked. I think it's something that, like, I hate the word help.
Well, there's so many words that are, for instance, we use pretty commonly, you know, evil, and that wasn't a word that we used growing up. There were rakshasas and demons, but evil and the devil are used in Judeo-Christian
exactly.
Belief structures. And we, you know, so that there are so many different nuanced words.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's why I think it's important to like understand the language that we were early on wired with and how we use it in our lives now and what that all means. Because again, tolerance, acceptance, all these things can mean something different because we grew up in such a different way. You know, Christians, Mormons, people who are atheists might have a completely different relationship with the word service or tolerance or, you know, whatever.
All right. I don't want to take time away from your second half, and I'm just going to take 60 seconds to make this announcement. This is a phenomenal day because 3 states are hearing testimony to end child marriage. They're on the Senate floor, all 3 of them today. And Brigitte, I'm calling you out. Maya here, who is watching live, is actually Brigitte. She has all 3 of the live stream Senate hearings on 3 different devices, plus this now. So she's really in it. And Ohio, I heard their testimony this morning. And then Oklahoma is probably happening right now. I asked Brigitte to update us if there's a vote. And Colorado is this afternoon. So this is extremely exciting for us. I really hope that it's going to pass. I don't see why it wouldn't. But this is a really big and really exciting day for us. So very, very exciting.
Cheers to both of you for everything you're doing. There's that you picked up this mission, and hopefully the girls will have a better sense of safety and freedom going forward. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to jump into what happened when you moved to England when you were 12?
Yeah, sure. I do want to just make some space in our chat if anybody wants to talk about the child marriage. We can also pick this back up at the end, but we will do I think we want to do an episode on this. And if Maya wants to join us at some point, then I think that would be really cool. Okay, so I'm here with my dad this week in Tampa, and we're hanging out. And my dad and I have always talked. I've always asked him questions because I was fascinated by this human who brought me into the world and has been both an amazing person and been there really helpful to me in these really intense times, but has also caused a lot of problems in my life. And so the conversation Vanessa and I were having before we jumped on was about what did I get out of the conversation with my dad this weekend? Because now my dad and I, when we get together, I always have him tell me stories about my mom and growing up and his life and, all his adventures and ours as a family and the Hare Krishna thing. Because I've been really trying to understand him and understand what happened. And you had asked me what my takeaway was this time. And I would say the takeaway for me was how unbelievably different his experience of the Hare Krishna movement and mine was. Here is an adult, but I don't think of anybody as an adult that knows what they're doing anymore. I think everybody's constantly trying to figure it out. So this guy is 22. He gave up his rock career. He gave up just his rock career. That's all he had to give up, right, to become a Hare Krishna. And he did it willingly. He was excited to adventure on this spiritual journey. He was excited to learn about India and Indian culture. And he even said it, right? I'm sure you remember, but he was like, the food was amazing. What we get at the temple now is nothing compared to the temple food, back then. So it really was a magical time for them. And everything they did was a choice. He never felt like he had to be in the Hare Krishna thing. He never felt like he couldn't leave. He never felt that, when he made his vow to become a Brahmin and do the 4 regulations and whatever, he was at choice. He loved this. My mom loved it. They were having a blast. This was so different from their, Methodist Catholic upbringing, where they wore khakis and white t-shirts and moms wore jeans and, they got to wear saris and it was cool. And it was cool when I was little with them. I got a message from someone on LinkedIn, and she said, I remember your little face when you were a little girl and how excited you were at the temple, and you were always dancing and chanting, and you loved wearing a sari, and it was completely out of the blue. She doesn't watch our podcast. And I was like, wow, that's so fascinating, because the rift I felt was when my parents dropped me off in Dallas. And so my dad did say the other day that they learned about the abuse. But I will say that learning about the abuse, like in a way from the other temple presidents or whatever, was going to be really different than his daughter crying on the phone or writing a letter. And because all of my communication with him was censored, he never heard it from me. And then I shut down emotionally. And I didn't start talking about it again until after the fact.
So when you moved to England when you were 12, is that when you came out with it and told him everything?
No. So England, I was so free in England and I had such a good time. We lived at the temple property, but I woke up late. I ate what I wanted. I didn't have to wear any Indian clothes. I wore kilt, my little kilt. We moved to England in, I think it was 1983. I think, is that what he said? 83 or 84. And I was only there in the summer. We'd gone, so I was there in the summer. So it was like 3 or 4 months. And then Manjari went to school in France. Her and Vaish went to school in France, and we had become really close. And they were like, come to France with us. And I was like, okay. So I said, Dad, I really want to go to school. Pita, I really want to go to school with them. And so he was fine with it, because he, as a person who hadn't taken care of a kid in a long time, was like, what am I going to do with my daughter? So going to France was like the biggest joy. Being in England and going to France was the biggest joy of my life, because I was 100% at choice. I wanted to be there. And so that's really why the experience too was so different. You know, I felt like I was in charge of saying, yes, I wanted this and I love this and I'm going to do these things so that I can be with my friends. So, yeah.
So you went to France?
I went to France. So I was in England for a few months. Then I went to the France Gurukul. I had 75 francs in my pocket. I felt like a rich bitch. I was like, oh my God, I'm away from my crazy parents. Not crazy, but I was like away from the US, and I had money in my pocket, and I just fell in love with all the girls in the French Gurukula. It was just, they did treat them a little bit different. It was not, the boys that had been to India already had that experience that they had brought to the French Gurukul. I think in France, there were still stories of abuse. Like I went back for a reunion this last August and was disheartened by some of the stuff that I heard. So it was different. It wasn't necessarily better, it was different. Right. And then there were also, I think there was more parental involvement with the kids in France also. The more the parents were kind of involved. So yeah, we weren't offering dandavats in the street, but we were doing Sankirtan still. We had to get in a bus and go sell books. But this time we were just rebellious, and I wouldn't sell the books, or if I did sell the books, we'd get like a franc, 1 franc or whatever we would get at the time. And then we would go sneak into a shop and buy chocolate. We'd buy soda and sneak it around. I'd throw books away in the trash can at this point and just say, oh, they didn't want money, or they didn't have any money, so I just gave it to them. So I'd offload like 10 or 12 books. I'd have 10 francs, and the bad girl phase started at that point.
Good for you.
Yes.
And so how long were you in France?
I was in France for 4 or 5 months. So in December of whatever year that was, I came back to the States for holiday, and then they wrote my dad a letter and said, she's too much trouble, number 1, and we're closing the school, so she can't come back.
France closed.
Yeah.
When you
They
were,
didn't close for a while, but the big reason was that I was causing problems. And because at this point I was 12. I was like tired of being messed with. And I knew enough, for whatever reason I knew, to fight back. And so Moksharupa was one of our teachers, and my friend Bhakti and we were, I don't know what we were doing. And we were talking about how people, they were always hitting us. Moksharupa was always slapping us in the face. And I said to Bhakti, I said, okay, the next time she hits you, smack her back. And I was like, everybody, the next time we're hit, we're hitting back. And so Bhakti did. Moksharupa slapped her across the face in a room, all of us, and Bhakti just smacked her. And we were like, yes!
did she stop then?
Yes.
That's great.
We were done. I mean, we were done as done could trap little 12-year-olds could be, you know. I mean, it was funny. My friend Shri, well, the guy, he said to me one day, he was like, you were like Lucifer and we were your sheeple. And what he meant by that was, at this point, I had a big mouth. I was fearless. I did not care. I was tired of watching my friends get hurt. I was tired of being pimped out to make money for these people. And I was like, you know what? We don't have to do any of this. We could do whatever we want, you know? So I was really an instigator of good trouble, like of disagreement at this point. I disagree. And we're not doing this anymore. So listen, there's a lot of people that, like when I went back to France, I have some very devout friends. Like they're very involved. They're with the temple or with Hare Krishna movement still, and, you know, very loving, wonderful people, but they have their share of issues, but they're still involved. And then there's people that varying degrees, that they had a little bit of a different camaraderie. They had it was the first school I'd been to where I felt like we were actually friends. It was a different way of relating to each other. And you can see that now, like when I went back, it was just a different, Shri probably remembers, because I think Shri was in France too, but it was just.
No, she was in England.
Or she was in England. Okay.
She was in England. I don't remember if were you in Shri? Were you in France also?
Were you in France? Yeah.
Do tell.
So I think we had a lot of, I felt like I had a lot of freedom.
Oh, right. After England, she went to South Africa.
Okay. France was also the first place I had a proper bed. Oh. So we had bunk beds. And so there were 4 of us to a room, and it was really, really fun.
That is amazing that you got to sleep on a bed.
I had the top bunk, I had privacy, I had my Tweety Bird stickers up on my wall because I love Tweety Bird. And any chocolate that I had that I would buy or stole or whatever, however I got chocolate, I hide it under my pillow. So no one was going to come check under my bed or whatever. So I had a little bit of my own.
Nice.
Yeah.
So now you're back in the States with your mom?
So, nope. I came back to the States with my dad, and this was a whole new level of hell. My dad was with a woman who was very, very troubled. She was a drug addict. And my dad was having a hard time stabilizing after the temple also.
So we were living. Left?
Huh?
Did he had left the temple?
Yeah. He left the temple. So this was hard because for 10 or whatever years it was, that's all he knew. You know, it was very structured. He knew where to sleep and eat, and had all his friends, and he had this whole thing. So when he left the temple, you know, he had none of that. He came into a world in the 80s that was way more expensive. He didn't have a partner. You know, they weren't splitting rent with my mom. Now he had 2 kids that he was separated, my brother and I were separated now because he was with my mom and I was with my dad. And I mean, the life that we lived after
She said
that
he blooped.
wasn't better. Oh yeah, my dad blooped hard. He was kind of like a fringy on this, prior to this, but going to the London Temple allowed him to step into being a fringy, which has meant, you guys remember what fringy means, right?
You're just on the fringe.
Yeah. You're living on the sidelines. So, from what I understand, my parents, towards the end of their time in Miami, they ate chocolate, they were smoking pot.
You said that at the same time you said that. Said they ate chocolate,
Oh, how funny. Oh my God, that's so funny.
right?
So, yeah, I mean, they were kind of being bad anyways,
Oh my
whatever.
God. Oh my God. They passed it. Bridget,
They passed it?
44 yay to 0 nay. Am I right, Bridget? Oh my God. That's
That's
Oklahoma.
amazing. Oh my
That's
goodness.
Oklahoma. That's crazy.
I don't think anybody in their right mind would have ever voted no on that, at least not in today's
Oh, you'd
climate.
be surprised.
That is incredible.
I thought that was it. Something just passed, and I thought it was that. I should have checked to see what bill number it was, but sorry, that whatever that was, it just passed, and I thought it was that one. All right, hopefully she'll tell us. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. It's very emotional.
Is it better for us to? I don't want to tell my story like in
I'm
this.
sorry.
Yeah,
No,
that's okay.
No, I can I can focus.
Well, yeah.
Okay. But I do want to know when you say that your dad blooped and you were now having this hellacious time. Where was your mother?
My mom was raising my brother, Hare Nanda, who was her guru, or the family guru, whatever. Same guy who wanted me to marry Jatayu, had threatened my mom with literally spiritual annihilation, were his words, if she did not marry this other person. So my mother was very naive. My mother was very broken at this point. That's a whole nother story. Very broken.
Jatayu was the guy that you were supposed to marry. Why is he still involved in your life?
He's not.
No, I mean, at this time, you said he had threatened.
The guru threatened my mom.
Oh.
Not Jatayu. So the guru who thought I was uncontrollable, and the way to solve my uncontrollability was through marriage, he also threatened my mother with spiritual annihilation. And if you understand the context and the severity of something like that, my dad wasn't in a cult. My mother was.
Interesting.
Right?
How was that easy for you to delineate?
I didn't get that until right now.
Huh.
My dad was not, my mom bought into all the philosophy, but also the manipulation.
Interesting.
And she was very conflicted and distorted by it. She became very vulnerable to Hare Nanda, who is, that guy never did anything good for our family. It broke our family up. It separated us. He tried to control my mother and I. So this guy's not on our like favorite list, right? So so my mother felt really like spiritually obligated. And when you that's that coercive control that we're trying to look for. that we wanted to kind of talk about, right? That's the coercive kind of control. What they did to my mother was unforgivable. I will say that. And so, and there's more context to her story that will come out in other times, but she married this person who was very, very disturbed. And then they eventually moved to Orlando. Then she had 2 more daughters with this person. And their life was incredibly difficult for the 4 years that he was really kind of involved. So my mother was under duress and very naive and my mom had given up her power, let's put it that way. And that's what made it easy for people to manipulate and really mess with her. So she unfortunately was, I think, not in sound mind when she made those decisions.
I do like on a separate live, we should talk about the difference between why you think your father wasn't and your mother was, because that's very interesting. Because I think my mother would have said that she wasn't and my dad was.
Okay.
So I've never understood that. I was like, well, you made your choices when you made, like,
yeah.
But
I think my dad did it completely a choice. He did it for fun. He was super curious. My dad's a lighthearted guy. He didn't buy into all the crazy nonsense. He wasn't crying and didn't have a tortured soul over any of this. He had thoughts about it, but he was just kind of like, yeah, this is cool. My mom, it's almost like, here's an example of like looking at the fruit and saying the fruit is beautiful and actually like eating the poison fruit. Do you need a minute?
No. No, it officially passed.
It just passed. I see it on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can celebrate that. I think that's really, really massive, you guys.
I'm a little emotional.
Yeah.
So
take a minute. Let's just take a minute and be with this, because this is where we're at.
This is really, really, really fucking phenomenal. It's really great.
Yeah.
It's really
great.
It's a
really big deal.
And we didn't get to see the vote earlier for Ohio because we lost that stream. And so we're still trying to find out that. And then we still have Colorado today. This is really phenomenal news. This was such a long shot. We should
have done this on child marriage today.
Oh, yeah, that would have been, but I really wanted to get back to your story. Yeah, hooray. This is 17 states today.
I hope that this means that cults like we grew up in are not able to do what they did to you and tried to do to me. Because I felt humiliated when, as a kid, being propositioned for marriage. I felt humiliated by that.
Well, it is gross.
Mm-hmm.
It is disgusting. And I don't know that people believe that God is their judge and man can't tell them what to do. And this is like one of the major problems with God-fearing people, is that they think they're above the law because only God can tell them what's right and wrong. So if their God or their church or and they believe what these men who are in, the wearing the cloth are the messengers of God, and they're not. They're just men, and they're usually pedophiles.
Yeah.
And
there's an interesting, we're going to just bear with us, everyone. I'm going to try to get the name of it right now. LDS. So there's a movie called Trust Me, the False Prophet. I just saw this on YouTube today. I don't know when it came out. It looks like it came out maybe a year ago, but it's all happening for some reason on YouTube right now. It's just kind of everywhere. And I think I'm going to watch it.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, and we can talk about this because he basically is married to all these children, these little girls.
So gross.
So maybe next week we'll actually talk about this and we'll bring this up. And if Maya wants to join us, I'd love to hear more about the work you guys have done together. And I think it would be good to share that.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you're 13 and you're back in the States and you're living with your blooped father.
With my bloop dad in my grandma's house. The next 3 years were, I'm going to kind of summarize it right now because we won't go over time today. But the next 3 years were really, really hard. There was zero stability, zero financial stability, no emotional stability other than my grandmother, my grandparents, who were very solid. But I lived in her house. And my dad kind of came and went because he had this girlfriend who was very disturbed person, on drugs, mentally unwell, and she caused a lot of problems in my life. She was very, very abusive. One morning I was woken up. It was 2 a.m, and I was woken up by 5 cops who had come into the house and into my bedroom and woke me up. And they brought me into the living room and they said, "Is your father molesting you?" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, what is going on?" So this woman had called the cops, and because she was angry at my dad and because she was on drugs, accused my dad of, in that moment, molesting me. And I was terrified. I was disgusted. And it really put like a rift between my dad and I, not because he did it, but because I felt so violated by the conversation, the things that this woman was saying. She was telling me what he was doing. And I was like, "Dad, I don't understand." And apparently she was molested by her dad. So I don't know if she was having a mental breakdown or what was going on, but this went on. Her instability went on for years. She was very violent with me. She tried to choke me. She cut up all my clothes and poured nail polish all over them.
So your father continued to make choices that put you in harm's way.
Over and over and over again. There are so many other stories that I could tell, but I feel like I don't want to. That they'll be in the book, because they're hard to talk about, and I don't think today is the day to do that. But yeah, there was an extreme amount of trauma. I would say there was more violence and trauma in those 3 years from 13 to 16 than I would wish on anyone ever. Emotional violence, sexual violence from not my dad, from people out where I was very unprotected. I met a pimp and his girlfriend, and they tried to recruit me. It turns out that my uncle knew them. They showed up at our Thanksgiving dinner. And I flipped out. I was just like, "What the fuck world am I in?" And it was just constant. I was propositioned by older men a lot during those years, but I was very unprotected. Again, my dad was very busy with his things. My grandmother tried her best. Something happened in my grandmother's house with her best friend's grandson. He was 24, and he was like my first kiss, and it didn't go anywhere beyond kissing, but I was like in a protected, safe environment, and here's this 24-year-old man, and I'm 13, and he's trying to whatever. And I'm like, I just felt like the only way that I've been able to justify a lot of what, and he was hot. So it's not like it wasn't something I had a crush on, but I was very, very young to have those experiences. And it was very confusing, right? There's this crazy lady accusing my dad of molestation, which did not happen. Then she's on drugs and she's hitting my dad. And, you know, there's this guy coming into my bedroom in the middle of the night, my grandma's grandson's best friend or whatever. And I was just like, it was so confusing. And I didn't have any tools other than like my rebellious nature to go like, what, to understand any of this. And I went back and forth between my dad, my mom, my uncle. There was zero stability. We didn't have housing security. So my dad had a hard time stabilizing income. So my grandmother, we were living in hotels for weeks at a time. We had to sleep in a car one night because his girlfriend kicked us out of the hotel. So we had to sleep in the car. So I think I'm having anxiety talking about this. There was a lot of instability, and but also my dad was my savior, right? He got me out of the Hare Krishna thing. So there was always this conflicting relationship. We had fun together. We talked. We got along really well. We were both very goofy and silly. So there was some very connected relational, like a very connected, we related to each other. We're very similar in some of these ways. So it was a mix of like having fun, but also what the hell, and then not really being protected and not knowing, but I knew he loved me. So it was just, this whole relationship has been like this, always confusing. And I've grown a lot of understanding and compassion for him, because I think what a life he's lived. And because of it, I have had to deal with a lot of unnecessary, bless you, a lot of stuff. So and then I got pregnant at 16. So this is when his girlfriend had tried to strangle me, literally strangle me. And I ran away. Bless you. I ran away, and that week I got pregnant. I took off and was at a party and being an idiot and got pregnant. And yeah.
That was Jay?
That was Jay. Yeah. So
Jay is Vanessa's son.
My son. So I'm a very like positive person naturally, and always saw the hope, always saw a vision, always knew there was a better way, always saw the best in people. Even when they were crappy, I could just let go too. When it's your parent and someone you actually like and get along with and who saved you, you know, it gets complicated. But I went to my mom. She was living in the LA Temple. So I was 16, and they paid $80 to put me on a Greyhound bus. It took me 3 days. I wore blue soccer shorts and a big baggy white t-shirt because I didn't want anyone to see my belly. I got to the LA Temple with my mom, and about a week in, I said, "Mom, I think I'm pregnant." And she flipped out. To admit that out loud was terrifying. And it's just kind of been like a nonstop roller coaster of experiences. So I have a unique way of looking at my experiences to say that I believe strongly that I'm here to have these experiences, meaning I accept that all these things have happened. I don't feel like a victim. Some of this was choice. And I've been in choice in my life since then, right? But it doesn't mean it wasn't hard, and it doesn't mean that it was an ideal situation by any means. But I really feel like my role in this life is to learn and share what I've learned. And I absolutely have never felt that my destiny or my fate is despair because of what happened.
So I I love the personal responsibility thing. Like that's always a good start. But I do like to remind people that before they were 18, it's not necessarily your own doing. Like I get that you made choices and you took that personal responsibility on yourself, but you were living based on the circumstances, that the cards that you were dealt, and you
Yeah.
had really shitty cards.
But I will never, ever, 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 and I didn't do this, not in my nature, to be like, let my life be a mess because of it. I am not going to there's no one that's going to destroy me. There's not a single thing, unless it's a nuclear bomb. Nothing's going to destroy me. I
Do
have
you
been
think you
through,
create your resilience, or do you think it's innate somehow
it
inside you?
is, it, it bubbles up in me. It comes from inside. It's not something I'm thinking about. So I do believe that it is my nature. It is my whatever. I'm, maybe an alchemist is a better word for it. I'm a creative person. That's my personality. I'm a creative, number one. So I can take anything you give me and turn it into something beautiful. It's not because it started off ugly or it isn't shitty or it doesn't stink or it's not violent or hurtful, but I know how to turn almost everything I've been given into something better. And I think that's a gift I was given. I don't know where it comes from. I don't really know.
But I guess, can it be taught?
I think it absolutely can be taught 100%.
Because we have a lot of friends who have not been so fortunate to just roll with the punches and bounce back.
Listen, it's hard right now for me. My son has gone through an addiction journey. That almost killed me. I've gone through Lyme disease and healing from that. I've gone through a divorce that at points felt life-threatening. Even as an adult, my experiences have not always been gentle. It has in other ways. Like I'm the richest person in the world when it comes to friends, 100%.
Me too.
I'm endlessly creative and resourceful, 100%. I can get out of anything. I can get over and move on over anything. I thought the situation with my son would have potentially killed me, but not because I was so destroyed, but because my body was going to flip out. Like at one point I thought I was having a stroke because it was so stressful. So part of this is I can also look at my entire the journey with my son and have humor about it. So I think I'm just built a certain way. And I will never, though, dismiss someone else's experience of not being able to let go of something or heal from something. But I do know that I have to also choose this. I could choose to be different. I could have chosen to go down drugs and alcohol. I could choose to be pissed off and separate from my dad and my mom and tell everyone to fuck off and whatever. I could do that, but I don't want to. I want to understand. I want to know myself. I want to know other people. I want to understand the humanness of it. And so that was the other thing I got from my conversation with my dad the other day was humans, there's no absolute to our existence. We're making up all the rules and the guidelines and our morality. There's some intrinsic morality I do agree with. But for the most part, we're all just trying to figure out what we're doing here and why we're here, and we don't know jack shit. At any point we could die. I mean, this is such an insane experience to be human that at some point I just want to keep being human and live my life. I don't really give a shit what happened to me at 4 anymore. Like I have other things I want to do in my life. I mean, these are rotten people that did rotten things. they don't have a lock on my life. I don't even know half their names anymore.
Well, and I
So
do think it's critical for us to constantly check those rules that we've created for ourselves as a
yeah,
society, as individuals, in our own homes, in our workplaces, or
yeah,
wherever they exist, to constantly question them. Because what happens is, well, and I would like to use a religious doctrine as an example, just by the by, that we can't make a set of rules and then not come back and revisit them and go, does this apply
yes.
to society for us? Is this the best good for us right now?
Because
And
everything is, rules are contextual always.
but having these archaic books that so much of the population of the world hangs their hat on, and it's the hill they're willing to die on, and they don't understand that we don't live there anymore. We know more things now. When these books were written, did we know that the world was round? I mean, listen, we've learned things now. let's
Right,
let's move forward. Let's
right.
evolve as people, and
Yeah,
stop living in these dark times where slavery was okay and beating your wife was okay,
right.
and marriage was ownership. Man owned the
Mm-hmm.
woman, and a
Yeah,
woman was given in marriage as a contract bargain to maintain wealth. And I I think that any rule that we make for ourselves has to be revisited periodically, and we have to talk about, is this right for me right now? Is it right for you? Is it right for us? And a rule for me might not be a rule for you. It's
yeah.
fine.
Well, that's where I think that, there's this moral relativism, right? The idea that morality is contextual and it's relative to what you're going through, what the time frame is. Like someone could look at the guy who first raped me when I was 14 and decide, you want to kill him. Is that okay? Could you kill the guy? I wouldn't advocate for his murder. But if somebody did that to my son, I'd advocate for that person to be taken out, right? So I think every rule, it's relative because we're human, we're fluid, we're constantly in flux and moving. But like you said, but so is society, right? The individual, we are. But then if you have a society who believes that raping children is okay, or legally molesting them through child marriage is okay, that was all okay at some point. And in some cultures in the world, it's still okay to do that. What you guys just helped happen today is changing the rule book, which hopefully will have ripples in, down the road and immediately. But yeah, I think that the rules do have to change, not periodically, consistently. You have to constantly update what your moral code is,
And
because we
reevaluate.
evolve. We grow, we evolve. Like you said, I love this. Just you said it simply. Like we learn, and then we say we don't do this. We're going to do something different.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, the Oklahoma bill that passed in Senate today, now it has to go to House. Sorry. I am having allergies or something. Now it has to go to the House and be voted again before it's done. So it's just the first step, but it's still a huge step, and I'm so thrilled.
yeah,
But to your point, and to all of us, I think one of the main points that I'm always trying to make is that I think it's critical that we evaluate um, our own awareness, self-awareness, and situational awareness, and other people. Like, be empathetic, be compassionate, try to allow for somebody to have their story, and you may not agree with it. It might be different than yours. You might have not made the same choices, but everybody has those tools that they got. Like, your choices were because you had a specific tool bag and that's the set of options you had.
So yeah, and we are born with the tool bag, whatever, but then we can take those experiences and learn from them. So my life has been a very interesting experience. I've had so many experiences that I can talk to almost anyone in the world and be able to come from a place of relatability and understanding and compassion. There are very few circumstances that I would not be able to meet with that because of what I've been through. Not because I read it in a book, not because someone told me I should be this way, but because I've lived through and made it through some really human, very difficult experiences. Now, I spent from 32 to last year, I was in therapy. I've had a therapist who's helped me get through, EMDR, all kinds of therapy, and it worked. I've done parts therapy, I've done talk therapy, I've done all kinds of stuff, and it worked. I am a healed person at this point. Doesn't mean I don't have pain, doesn't mean you couldn't make me cry, doesn't mean I couldn't get angry at something, but I don't live with that in the constant. I am not a 4-year-old little girl anymore reliving what happened. I'm a grown woman with a full life that is wild. And I've had my own unique way of working through it and looking at it. And I think the gift in this is that I can meet almost anybody where they are in the moment. And so because of that, I really don't think that I would change much about what happened in my experience. There's a couple things I would change, but not much.
That's fascinating. And I still want to talk to you more about that, because I'm still a little bit twisted about you saying that you wouldn't have changed your childhood. You wouldn't have done it differently.
It's not that I wouldn't have changed my childhood. It's that I can't change my childhood. And knowing my parents, my life would not have been better. It might have not been worse, but my parents were still seekers. They were still wild. I could have grown up in a musician culture, exposed to more drugs, more sex, more whatever. I would have been eating chocolate and soda and watching TV and had all that influence. The idea that I was going to pop out of my family circumstance and be different up until the age of 18 is very, very improbable. I would have had knowing who they are and accepting who they are. Things would not have been that different. It would have just been a different stage.
Yeah. So here's where I accept this, but I don't understand it. And I am not ready to celebrate it. But
that's okay.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't need to tolerate it. This, I do accept it. We're beyond tolerate, like
exactly.
I completely accept that this is your journey. I don't have any attachment to changing it. So, but I am curious, and I'm interested in people's stories and lives and how they got through whatever they got through. And
there was a time, if you got me a few years ago, 10 years ago, I was still working through a lot of stuff. I was not at the place where I was accepting. My mom died when in 2011. That threw me into the worst depression. It took 10 years. It's taken 10 years for me to heal. I've gone to every kind of therapy to heal this stuff. And I didn't get to where I am until after my mom died. And I went through a lot of healing around that, deep, dark moments. I had full on dark night of the soul, but for like 10 fucking years. And I did a lot of like deep meditation work in 2016. And that was life-changing for me. And I've done what I call like radical acceptance. It was really hard to accept. But once I did, that's where I found my freedom. As I had to give up part of my identity that I was a damaged, abandoned little girl. And my parents were going to be these mega millionaires who got me into acting and ballet. Like I wanted to be a ballet dancer. I wanted to be an actress. My life would have been really cool. That's what I wanted. But I didn't have that. So I got pregnant, and then I had to work, and then my kid was dealing with addiction, and then I got divorced, and then I got sick with Lyme disease. And like, fuck, what? If I sat here and wanted and really thought my life should be different after 18, I should have made like a million different choices. And so here we are. I have to, for me to be okay in my life and to keep going and to make use of the ingredients I have. I guess essentially I just have to make use of the ingredients I have. And some of them are bitter and sour, and some of them are fucked, and some of them are amazing. So it's like.
But I do think that people hold on to the identity of their trauma.
Yeah.
And they allow it to define who they are, and not in a positive way. They're like, this happened to me, so I'm entitled to being miserable and broke, and it's not my fault. And they lean into it, as opposed to, this happened to me and I'm going to use it as a springboard to be different and to be better. And it's hard to say, because as a survivor of many things, I get it. I'm not trying to tell somebody to let it go, but I want them to use it as a power position, as opposed to an oppressive position, that I can't exist because this set of circumstances happened to me.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to get people to come away from that. But that happened. Yes.
It is.
Honor it.
But
it
I think the identity piece is key in healing. And I have never identified anything other than me. And I am that I am. I really, that phrase always like got me. Like I understand what that means. And I understand that I'm in the world, but I am not the stuff that happens. I have a very intrinsic connection with that language and that idea. But
are you that body?
I'm not. But I love my body. There's some of the stuff that Jesus said that actually meant more to me than the stuff that we grew up with. That I was like, oh, I completely relate to that. I'm in this world, not of the world.
Listen,
I am joyful.
A broken clock is right twice a day. We can find all kinds of good stuff that's in the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Bible, the Old Testament. We can find good things everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think making anything absolute is actually the problem.
I agree.
Deciding that this is it, and saying these are rules for the rest of everybody's life. And forever and ever is the most preposterous and ignorant, short-sighted presentation that humanity has ever put forth.
But it's also what we do to ourselves. If we say to ourselves, I am a victim, I am a cult survivor, I'm a Lyme survivor, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a that, we're creating this really complex identity. I don't have an identity problem. I don't identify with those things. I am joyful. I am creative. I am fluid in the way I think about life. I am ridiculous. I have a billion ideas constantly 24/7. I am loving. I am kind. I'm gentle. I am compassionate. I can be really fierce and crazy too. I am those things. I don't ever feel like I am the other things. Those are my experiences. And that's something that when I really got into like the I am versus I experience, that's probably one of the biggest healing moments of my life, because I was like, wow, I don't have to be, I am not a rape, a person you rape. Like, I don't think like that. I had an experience of someone who this happened to. So that's a completely different thing. My identity is not wrapped up in what happened to me.
Doesn't define you.
No, and it never has, ever. When I think of myself, I'm like a wildfire, I'm a bird, I'm a flower, I'm a cloud, I'm something else, having this insane experience.
It's an interesting thing, because I've been trying to learn Spanish as opposed to just the conversational thing that I do just with people and speak it really roughly. And Spanish has two different is, like there's es and está, right?
Okay.
And one is a fact. I am a redhead. That is an immovable, constant fact. The other one is I am tired. That's a temporary fact.
Right.
So
I love that.
Yeah. And I love language, because
Yes.
we talked about that pukka, pukka is like, there's no other word like it. But it's fascinating to learn other languages so that you can see context for everything.
Yes, so differently.
So differently. And I've found that to be interesting in learning, because it actually makes it easier to know it.
Yeah.
And see vocabulary differently.
Totally. I'm a really big word nerd. And so I think that the words that we use and the way we talk about our lives and ourselves is so fundamentally important to our experience. And I would kind of want to even say to your redhead thing, like, are you a redhead? Like, if I 10 years ago, I am a brunette. I am not a brunette. So it has nothing to do with my identity. I'm gray. I have completely white hair. This is fake blonde, right? Secrets out. So even to say, I would say I have versus I am a brunette, I would say I have brown hair.
Well, the thing is that redheads have like a little bit of a reputation, and they're a little bit attached to the identity of being a redhead.
You got it, girl. You can keep it.
I am in all of the ways.
If you choose an identity, choose one that is fluid and dynamic and allows you to move through whatever the fuck this human experience is. I'm not trying to be just philosophical to take us out of the things that we're actually experiencing, but to say also that I never have felt like I am. It was hard. It's even hard. I never say I am Vanessa. I say my name is Vanessa. I don't say I am Radhe. My name is Radhe. I've always been very attuned to those kinds of things because they never felt like truth. I will only, sometimes in habit, I'll say I am to something. But when I'm really paying attention to my language and what I'm saying, there's a very distinct difference between what I have, what has happened, what I'm doing versus who I am.
And it might also matter how that statement makes you feel, Julie, redhead forever.
Is Julie redhead too?
Yeah.
Oh, how cute. I have a sister who's a redhead. Yeah.
But also I think it matters how those statements make you feel, and in identifying with them, what that means to you, and how it makes me feel good to say that I am certain things, because it helps me identify maybe my accomplishments, or I am a real estate broker, I am a homeowner, I am a redhead. These are things that make me happy. So I don't mind owning them. And that's
amazing.
As them.
Yeah.
But you know, but you're right. I mean, to burden yourself with, you know, and it bothers me when people say like, oh, I'm stupid, or I don't, you know, you know, the words that are
Yeah.
self-deprecating or whatever, unless it's funny. What
But I
is
think that that's helpful as trauma survivors too, is to know that there is an identity beyond the experience.
I'm
And
an
again,
eternal spirit soul.
I'm an eternal spirit soul. I
Nipuna
love
said when
that.
she was 5 and grown-ups asked her name and age, she would say, I am an eternal spirit soul.
I'm going to use that now. When people ask me my age now, I say I'm alive or I'm eternal. I don't give them my age number. So maybe that's where I got this from, Nipuna. That's super cute.
I like to say I'm 75 and then they tell me I look really good. So.
I'm going to start saying I'm 125.
Yeah. 108.
Yeah.
I'm 108.
Yeah. Don't ever put my name in like Vanessa, American born, age, blah, blah, blah. Like, don't give me that.
Not a robot.
Identity. No, ridiculous. Anyways, all that to say is I think that there is an identity beyond the trauma that we experience. The experience that we have is not meant, I don't believe that any experience that we have is meant to hold us down and hold us in that space forever. If we learn from it, we can do something with it. If we're willing to digest what we learn from it, then we can grow and evolve. That's the only way that any of this is bearable. I call it emotrients. It's a word I made up, and it means that all the emotions that we have, all the experiences that we have are meant to be digested. And only when we digest them can we move on and can we make something amazing with that experience. And so that's my little nerdy phrase that helped me think, like, if I had medicine, for instance, I've had a lot of fucked up medicine in my life. If I'm not willing to take it, then I'm not going to be able to do anything beyond it. So I digested my anger. I digested my rage. I digested all the shitty things so that I can go on and do something amazing with it.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing. I know this was raw and vulnerable for you. And we did have some distractions today, which I think are a good thing.
Well, it's amazing what you guys accomplished. But yeah, it was vulnerable. I've had a hard week. I've had a pretty intense depression in the last week or two, and not because of any of this, but it does kind of activate the idea that, like, my life is so much more than what happened to me when I was 4. My life is so much more. And I'm not willing, I'm also very aware that we're on limited time. And we don't know how long we're going to be alive. My mom died at 57, 58. I might have 20 seconds left. I might have 100 years, maybe. Well, I'm just saying. I'm not going to spend my time here. I want to create. I want to build community. I want to bring women together from all over the world who we want to change the world. We have to heal this, which means we have to be willing to let it go at some point. We have to be able to take the experiences and do what you and Brigitte are doing. You do something. You alchemized the shit that happened to you, and you turned it into a fucking law that's going to protect girls all over the US. That's the gold of life.
It's right very there. Healing. Yeah,
absolutely.
And this is how you heal. You take your experiences and you make them better for somebody.
You do, for somebody, anybody.
It can be for someone else, and I will still feel amazing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I hate to say this, but you might have been able to change the world had you not had the experience you had. So
I agree.
Maybe
I agree that maybe the impact wouldn't have been the same, or maybe I wouldn't have had the desire or the need or the urgency to do so.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I feel compelled to do it, because I'm like, well, if this happened, let it be for something good.
Way to alchemize it, like way to step beyond what happened. And now you can be, now the identity is, you choose it, right? But it's like, what's your identity now? Now you're a woman who, it's not that you're a rape survivor. Now you're a woman who has saved and helped save millions of girls.
And that's the point, to
And
change
that's,
that identity. Yep.
yes, yes. And let these girls know that are in the world right now dealing with this, that there's something beyond it for them also. And you're coming from a lived experience, not a book or whatever. You know, you lived it. You know that there's hope.
Yeah.
And that to me is amazing.
Well, you are creating joy wherever you go.
Well, I hope joy, but also reality, like to say that you can have grief, you can have these fucked up experiences, but that's not everything. That's not all there is. There's also joy. I was crying in my dad's arms the other night hysterically, with feeling very broken inside about some stuff. And also we've been talking in accents and having fun and going to the beach. So life, reality, emotions, grief happen right alongside joy. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can live in the complexity of all of that. So I'm not here to bypass emotions or your experiences. It's to say, fucking own it. And also, there's this. There's a pretty flower. There's a cute cat. There's a game we can play. There's the ocean. This place, this earth, this life is still mind-bogglingly incredible. And that's more of what I'm here for, is to be that, to help be the balance, to say yes and.
Yes, and. Well, I am excited to be on this journey with you, and I'm extremely grateful that you shared your heart-wrenching story. And it gives everybody some context and some ideas of where we're coming from when we talk about stuff, and what that foundational philosophy of our own making is.
And where our fire comes from. I mean, you have a huge accomplishment ahead, or you're working on, and we both, the topics going forward are not just our stories. Now we're going to be getting into other topics around all of these types
motherhood,
of issues.
Forgiveness, the demands of motherhood. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, the demands of motherhood, what freedom really means, the kind of, you know, world we want to grow into and create for women in the future. What are we have some fun stuff on here too.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun stuff.
The humor of trauma, or the trauma of humor, you know, talking about the role humor plays in all of this. So,
and how humor can be very healing and very cathartic as well. Yeah. I do. Yeah, I want to do some fun and funny stuff. And you know, these have been a little heavy, but we'll get into some fun stuff. Maybe some debates about forgiveness.
We can set it up like a debate contest. That would be really fun. What's the prize for the winner?
I don't know. But
also, we have some of our friends here. We just want to extend the invitation to Nipana and Brigitte and anyone else and Shri. We want to do our next conversation. We really would love to have you girls on, because we want to do a vocabulary sesh, an episode on Hare Krishna vocab.
So much fun.
So we can extend the invitation, and if y'all are a yes, we'll follow up with you outside of this.
Yeah, that would be, humor is life. This is true. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back here next Wednesday at 4:00. Excited to see you then.
Yes, and that'll be our vocabulary session. Whoop, whoop.
Love you guys. Bye.
See you, everyone.